You know, I like Deadpool, but Green Lantern really has a nice ring to it. Hey, shh. Welcome back to Not Another Needless Sequel, where we watch movies and propose unnecessary prequels, sequels, reboots, and remakes. My name is Kane, and my co-host today is my wife, Kelsey.
If you'll excuse me, I have a podcast to record. Our fans await.
Was that from the movie?
Kind of.
Okay. This week we put in maximum effort and watched 2018's Deadpool 2. So what do you think the story was?
Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, aka Ryan Reynolds, is trying to...
AKA Van Wilder?
AKA the Green Lantern. Do you not have another
AKA
one?
guy that is in a weird relationship with a girl in Adventureland.
AKA the waiter in waiting.
Who's also talking to an underage girl.
Yeah.
AKA the guy that was fat and then got skinny.
AKA the murderer that puts heads in the freezer and talks to him.
AKA the guy that was buried alive.
That was my next one. That one's good. AKA the one that says, definitely, maybe.
AKA guy from that video game movie.
Oh. AKA Deadpool previously in an X-Men movie.
AKA comes back from the future to his younger self and his father's Mark Ruffalo.
Ooh, that's a good movie too. AKA the one guy in that movie with The Rock that we never watched.
Burn Notice?
I don't know.
I think you lose.
I don't.
Yeah, so what about him?
Oh, AKA the guy from The Proposal.
Here we go.
Yeah, that one's good too. Anyways, Deadpool, I'm sure everyone knows about Deadpool. I feel like they do, is trying to stop Josh Brolin, who plays Cable and Thanos, from murdering a child.
When the movie opens up, we see Deadpool laying on a pile of gasoline barrels, and he's bitching about Wolverine having died in his previous film, or prior to this one, Logan. And he's like, well, I'm dying in this one too. And then it goes back before that to lead up to that moment, and we see that he, since the first movie, has been international with Hitman stuff that he was doing before.
What I do want to say is while he is on these barrels, he has Crocs on that are strapped into fourth gear. He's ready to give the razzle dazzle at any moment.
He sure is. So we see just a montage of him fighting people around the world. He's been having the time of his life, and he's got Vanessa, and everything's just great. But as he says, every good family film starts with a vicious murder, and because he pissed off seemingly somebody during all this heroing he's doing, they show up to kill him, and he fights them off, but one of them gets a stray bullet off that does hit Vanessa seemingly in the heart. He runs after the guy, grabs him, and he throws himself whilst holding the guy in front of a bus. It starts off in this like James Bond-esque intro.
I love the James Bond intro.
Yeah. Something about that intro mixed with Vanessa's, like, it's so surprisingly sad for a movie that starts off with some of the jokes that he's making.
I actually made a note about how sad Vanessa's death was felt as well.
It's amazing how well it's done. And then the follow-up of that intro, I think, lends itself to that a lot. And, you know, you're seeing in the credits, like, it's saying stuff like, presented by What the Hell Just Happened, written by The Real Villains, starring a guy who clearly doesn't want to share the spotlight. Like, all this stuff that's, like, talking about Vanessa's death. And, it's amazing. Like, it's an amazing opening.
It is. Top opening.
Absolutely.
It gave the movie at least a whole extra point.
Absolutely. So he is now depressed, and, you know, he's like, because Vanessa's dead, he has nothing to live for, so he wants to die. He obviously can't really die, but...
Not for lack of trying. He snorts a ton of cocaine at once, gets hit by a bus.
Yeah, but that's his, you know, his healing factor. But he tries to kill himself by blowing his entire body up, which takes us back to that first scene I mentioned. So he blows up the entire apartment, and he's like, goes to an afterlife and sees Vanessa, but there's like this barrier blocking him, and it's like not his time yet, which that comes up a few more times where he goes back to this afterlife and Vanessa's saying like, your heart's not in the right place, it's not your time. And so because he blew himself up and seemingly people found out that a fucking apartment building blew up, Colossus, who is like kind of his friend, it seems, and I kind of wondered, like I wrote down, I wonder what's the nature of their friendship, because they don't go into it. In the first movie, he just already knew him.
Yeah.
Colossus shows up and brings him to the X Mansion and is like, hey, you know, we're gonna get you back up on your feet, that kind of thing. He doesn't want anything to do with it. You know, he's going around the X Mansion in Professor X's chair, shit talking them. And I did write that. I thought it was funny that he's going through something serious and they show the X-Men in the background, like silently close the door. Like they just don't want to deal with him.
Because he mentions he's like, I can't even see the real X-Men, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. He says, Fox could have lent us a bone, give us some of the X-Men. Like, it's only ever you in this house. And they're all in that room.
Beast shuts the door.
Yeah, they apparently filmed that during Dark Phoenix, and they just sent it over to them. Anyway, he decides he's going to go ahead and join the X-Men, and he goes on a mission with them. His first mission is at this orphanage. One of the people there, Fire Fist, is like losing it. He's outside of the orphanage, like saying, get away from me. He's throwing fire everywhere. In the movie, the orphanage is called Essex, which is a reference to the X-Men villain, Mr. Sinister, whose alter ego is Nathaniel Essex. And Mr. Sinister once ran an orphanage.
That's wild. You said he's an X-Men? I don't even know who
he's
that
a bad guy.
But is he an X-Men bad guy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, they get there.
The little Easter eggs.
We love an Easter egg. When he gets there, he's got guns and swords. Like, that's how he shows up to this. He even says, like, oh, that kid's so cute. I probably shouldn't have packed the hollow points. And they all are not sure what to do, but Deadpool throws his sword, and just the handle of the sword, like, hits him in the head, and he falls to the ground. Deadpool sees on Russell's face something's wrong. He's like, is something wrong? Like, did they hurt you? And he like kind of nods along, yes. And then so Deadpool, going based off a lesson he learned from Colossus in the first movie, he says it only takes 4 or 5 moments to be a hero, and I'm gonna do that. And he fucking starts shooting at a bunch of the orphanage like people, and obviously that's not okay. And so Colossus tackles him and is like, this was your last chance. You're going to the icebox with Russell. And so the icebox is like this prison for mutants. These collars that they have there that take away their abilities.
Which is where, now if you'll excuse me, I've got tumors to grow. Vanessa awaits. Comes from, because Wade's ability is like his super healing, and so his cancer basically spreads and kills him when the collar's on.
Yeah, so there's like something about his healing is that he's always got cancer, but his healing is constantly replacing those cells with new cells, but like he can't ever heal from his cancer. So if his power is ever removed, he still has cancer.
Right. In the midst of all of this,
Cable comes back from the future, and we do see a scene of him in the future in like just ruins, and he goes back to the past, and
that's because he needed to bring the charred teddy bear.
Yes. And then surprise Matt Damon.
And he's a hillbilly. I didn't even know it was him. We had to watch the scene like 3 times.
I told you.
Did you confirm that it was him?
Yes.
Ah.
They asked him to be in it, and apparently, if I remember correctly, the director has been making this argument about toilet paper for a while and pitched it to him, and he loved it. It was God. Absolutely. Like, I'm there.
Dumb.
So, I'm only mentioning it because it's funny. It's unimportant to the story. It's just the first 2 people he meets. He's asked them the year, but they're sitting there having a conversation, and the guy is just arguing in favor of using baby wipes instead of toilet paper. He says, no, toilet paper is plenty fine appetizer.
Ugh.
I can't. Anyway, Cable is here to kill Russell, and you see Russell and Wade in the icebox, and Russell is like wanting to be his friend, and he's got this idea that people seem to have about prison where he's like, first rule of the yard, you find the biggest guy and take him out. And he's fucking like, I snuck a toothbrush in the old prison wallet, if you know what I'm saying. And Wade's like, I really hope I don't know what you're saying. And you see him go. And mind you, their prison cells are these clear boxes in the sky.
Yeah, he walks behind the toilet and starts to dig it out. And boy, howdy, he has to get up there to dig it out. So the next day in the cafeteria.
You gotta say Deadpool's line. It says, I can hear you rummaging around.
I didn't write that down because I didn't want to hear it again. The next day they go to the cafeteria or like wherever they eat their food.
Black Tom Cassidy tries to bully Wade. And of course, Russell's like thinking he's going to stab him with his shank, and he just gets punched in the face.
Shank.
Yeah. And they take the shank and they stab it in Deadpool's hand. He's like, this kid's not my friend. Like, he pretty much just wants to die. He's there to die. He doesn't care.
Well, because that's what he wanted the whole time, was to just be with Vanessa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like hurting Russell's feelings in the meantime, but this is also the moment that Cable shows up. He breaks into the icebox to kill Russell. Wade, of course, assumes that Russell is not the target and that he's there for him because of all the shit that he's done. And so he keeps telling Russell, get away from me, like, you're gonna get hurt. But Russell's the one he's after. And, so Cable is trying to kill him. Eventually they figure out that it is Russell that's being hunted, and Wade is protecting him. And Cable says to him, why are you protecting the kid? And, like, in that moment, I'm like, well, it's a kid, Cable.
Yeah.
Like, I know you have this thought, but you didn't explain that. You just showed up to kill a kid.
Yeah, it didn't explain that Russell had murdered his wife and daughter.
Yeah, maybe if you had said that to Deadpool, I don't think he would have allowed it, but you showed up to kill a kid.
Yeah.
That's why you're being fought.
And Deadpool says something to him, I don't care about the kid, blah, 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 blah. And Russell gets his feelings hurt and runs away.
Yeah. He gets away because during the fight, when Cable's distracted, Wade grabs a pin off of a grenade that Cable's wearing, and it blows out the side of the icebox, which throws them down a mountain.
Yeah.
And so Cable, needs to recuperate. He gets away from that, but also, during that fight, I guess I didn't mention, Deadpool's collar gets broken, so his powers are back. So he's no longer dying, but he also, is fucked up from the fight as well, but he escapes the icebox. Russell is still there, and Russell is trying to make a friend. He goes to, apparently, they mention this, there's a big monster in the icebox. It turns out to be the Juggernaut, but he's kept in a separate area, and they make friends just based on Russell giving him a pudding.
Yeah.
But, nobody else talks to him, so it makes sense. So, because of that whole ordeal in the icebox, they're moving the prisoners. Meanwhile, Wade knows he has to protect Russell, because he also dies again. He goes to the afterlife again when that explosion happens, because he hits his head on a rock going down the mountain, and that's where he kind of gets the idea, I have to protect Russell. That's going to get me, here, it's the right thing. Anyway, he is going to intercept this convoy that's moving the prisoners from the icebox, but he needs help, and so he's putting together X-Force. So, there's all kinds of people on X-Force, and it's famous people. And I remember in the trailers and stuff, they shot scenes that weren't in the movie just to make you think, X-Force was a thing. This was going to be the whole movie. One of my favorite parts also about him putting together that team is when Domino shows up and she's like, my superpower is luck. And he's like, well, that's not a superpower. And she's like, yes, it is. And he's like, no, it's not. Nope. And then he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you. I was just going to say, no, it isn't. She's like, oh, and I was just going to bring it back to, yes, it is.
Yeah, they get into the argument.
They have such a good, back and forth quipping about that. And then when he's like, all right, you're on the team, she's like, lucky me.
Yeah. I think my favorite part is when Pete shows up. Isn't that the guy's name?
I believe.
And he's like, "In what
Peter,
power?"
yeah.
And he says, "In what power do you have, Peter?" And he's like, "I don't. I just thought this sounded fun." So he's
like, "You're in."
Yeah, you're in. He's like, "Great." So they all get on a helicopter, they said helicopter later, but it was a plane.
Yeah, I think it was a plane.
And so they're all going to be skydiving down. Nobody has skydiving experience, and it's extremely windy. And Deadpool's like, I don't care, but while they're preparing for that, Peter is putting on sunscreen, and he says, I don't know about this Cable fella, but I'll bet he hasn't killed as many people as Melanoma has.
Yeah, everyone else is putting on knives and shit.
And he's rubbing sunscreen into his face.
Yeah, he even says, he's like, is anyone else worried about the strong winds? But they all jump out of this plane, and it goes awful.
Terry Crews is the first to die.
Yes, he just hits a bus and is dead. Fuck, I can't even remember all their names.
The invisible guy.
Yeah, Vanisher. Vanisher's Brad Pitt, which is a surprise. He was invisible the whole time, but he hits an electric wire and is getting zapped, and so you see him. Shatterstar flies into a helicopter.
Nobody's gonna miss Shatterstar.
He says he was a bit of a prick.
Yeah. Nobody's gonna miss Shatterstar.
Fucking...
The vomit. Acid vomit.
Yeah, he goes into a...
a mulch, slicer.
Yes, and Peter tries to save him, and he's trying to pull him out, and Peter gets thrown up on, and so it just melts with acid. The only person that survives outside of Deadpool is Domino. Not to mention, she's the only person that actually landed near the convoy.
Yeah.
Nobody else did.
Exactly.
And she's like, so where's the rest of the team? And he's like, well, they're all dead. And so he's got to get to her, but she's already there on the convoy. Now, this whole plan that they've enacted that fucking spectacularly failed. When he does the drawing for the people, he's showing them a drawing of his plan on what to do. You see in the drawing, there's a drawing of a Wolverine that's labeled Prisoner 24601. And that's Jean Valjean's prison number in Les Mis.
Oh, Jean Valjean.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So anyway, Deadpool and Domino, they intercept this convoy, and Cable also is there to fucking kill Russell.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're intercepting it, there's this really cool scene where Domino is really showcasing her power. Like, she's running and like a truck flips and it just misses her, and like something perfectly lands so she can jump it. Just all this crazy shit. He's complaining about her power, and he says, you know, whose idea was that? Probably someone who can't even draw feet. And of course, I told this to you in the movie when we were watching it, but Domino and Deadpool's co-creator Rob Liefeld is widely mocked and criticized for avoiding drawing characters' feet because he can't.
We did talk about that because he's like, look, that's such a dumb power.
Yeah.
It's probably, yeah, you're right. That was good.
There's also, like, it's been shown in the trailers for Deadpool and Wolverine. There's, like, a place, like a shoe store, and it's called, like, Liefeld's Just Feet or something like that. Like, they just keep going in on it. Anyway, the Cable and Domino and Deadpool fight on the convoy is pretty good. One of my favorite parts is they do what I think is like an homage to X-Men Origins Wolverine. In that movie, Ryan Reynolds is in it as Deadpool, and in the beginning they do this thing where he walks into a room getting off an elevator, and there's a million dudes all shooting at him, and he like puts both ends of his swords together and swings them around, is blocking every single bullet, cutting them in half.
Oh yeah, it's making fun of it.
Yeah,
because
and then they do that here, and Cable is the only one there, and he's shooting at him, and he's trying to do the same thing, and you just see several bullets going through him. Like, he's not blocking them.
It's so good. Eventually, all of this fight leads to the bus and everything crashing, and the bus crashing unleashes Juggernaut.
Yes, and so Juggernaut is of course Russell's friend now, and he gets out of the convoy, immediately runs at Deadpool and just rips him in half.
Yeah.
And Domino, during the crash, because of her luck, she flew way off in the opposite direction and landed on this big, like, inflatable panda. Cable's knocked out, and so Russell and Juggernaut escape.
Yes, and while they escape, he's trying to get him to come with him, apologize, and Russell's like, no, and then he's like, don't you do it, and he makes the finger things for legs, and then flips him off, and then invisible ropes away.
Yeah, and he's like, that rope's not real. That part's fucking great. So, Deadpool, now ripped in half, goes back to Blind Al's house, and he's sitting there with, his baby legs, and people are showing up. I did see that Ryan Reynolds apparently wrote the entirety of the toddler scene. Shirt cocking is a phrase I've heard my wife say, he said.
Oh my god.
One of them asked, or somebody asked, how he got away with showing a toddler's dick in the movie. I don't know if you noticed that, but when they do the Basic Instinct thing, there's a dick and balls there.
I don't even know if I, paid. I wasn't,
I'm not sure I looked that hard there either,
yeah.
but it's there. And Ryan Reynolds said, it's my dick and balls. That's how we got away with it.
Oh my god.
Anyway, Cable shows up as well, and he wants to make a deal with him. One of the things I fucking love about that scene is a couple things. One, Cable goes to grab something out of his fanny pack, or they all point their guns at him, and they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm retrieving something out of my utility bag. And Weasel goes, it's a goddamn fanny pack, and you know it, you sick son of a bitch. And then after he gets whatever he's getting out, it's fucking like chapstick, which weird, all the shit he's going through. But he starts putting it on, and he's looking at Deadpool, and he's like, you remind me of my wife. And Deadpool goes, I'm sorry. And he's like, I said you remind me of my wife. And he's like, no, I'm sorry you said that while applying chapstick and making heavy eye contact.
Yeah. They do eventually decide to team up, though.
Yes, so Deadpool's like, if you give me 30 seconds to talk to Russell, I will try and stop him from becoming the monster that kills your family in the future, because why Cable's here.
Because he gets a taste for it after he kills his first person.
Yes.
He becomes evil. So they all show up at the orphanage, ready to fight.
Yeah, and so they get to this orphanage, and Juggernaut and Russell are already there. Russell's chasing after the headmaster, and Juggernaut is too big of a fight for them. Like, Juggernaut's whole thing is he's got this unstoppable momentum, so you can't, stop him from running.
Yeah.
And
if anybody plays Marvel Snap, Juggernaut, if they play him, it moves a card away that you played that turn.
it sure does. Colossus does show up. There is a scene where they try and get Colossus to come with him, but Colossus is upset at how many times he's tried to help Deadpool, and Deadpool lets him down.
Yeah.
So Colossus does end up showing up to save the day and helping them with Juggernaut.
I think that it's hilarious, though, because when Colossus shows up, Deadpool has that, like, metal stake through his head, the arrow, and he picks him up, and Deadpool's, like, cuddling him, and all this. It's like a reunited love scene, while everybody is fighting in the background.
Yeah. Juggernaut is still almost too much for Colossus, and they are able to beat him by fucking getting him in water, pulling his pants down, shoving an electrical cable up his ass.
They sure do.
But do you know who played Juggernaut? Well, that's my last trivia. Ryan Reynolds was Juggernaut.
Oh.
His role as Juggernaut was so secret that the man that played Colossus, and I apologize about saying his name wrong, Stefan Kapisic, he told the Hollywood Reporter he didn't even know about it until late in production. Because obviously Ryan Reynolds wasn't standing there the whole time. They had like a thing there that they could CGI over, but it's Ryan Reynolds' voice, and he did a lot of the motion capture for it.
Oh, that's cool.
But, you know, that's...
Fun fact.
So, Wade is able to talk Russell down, but he kind of like goes up for a hug, and Russell's like, well, I can't trust you, and he burns him, and Cable's like, well, you tried, and he goes to shoot Russell, but Deadpool puts on one of those collars and takes the bullet, like jumps, and the bullet hits him, and he's dying. He's fucking laying there, and it's the longest.
His death scene is dumb. I'm just gonna put Deadpool's death scene is super dumb.
I didn't think it was dumb, but
I did.
Like, I thought it was funny. But he's dying, and he's taking forever, and he's fucking like saying just the dumbest shit. He's like talking to Colossus. He's like, "Will you say fuck for me just one time? Say it." Colossus is like, "Fuck," and he's like, "You're going to hell." Anyway, he's dead. But then Cable turns around and uses his one-time charge he has left on his travel thing to go back and put this skee ball token from Wade and Vanessa's first date into Deadpool's pocket, where it's going to block the bullet that's going to hit him. So everything plays out the same, except the bullet hits the skee ball token, which is 100% lead, and blocks the bullet.
I will say that people may be like, well, how did they know that it worked and Russell wasn't going to become a murderer anyway? And it's because color came back into the teddy bear that Cable brought from the future. It wasn't burnt in ash.
Yes.
So,
yeah,
there you go.
So that did all work out for them. You know, it's the Back to the Future thing where old boy has that photo of his siblings, and he has to see if they're still there or not. In the end credit scene, you see Deadpool get Cable's time travel pad, and he somehow gets it to get fixed by Negasonic Teenage, longest name ever. And he you know, it's famous scene now. He goes through and he kills the old Deadpool from the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie. He shoots Ryan Reynolds in the head when he's looking at the Green Lantern script. Apparently there was a baby Hitler scene that they cut out.
Oh my gosh.
But that is the movie. I think that this movie is so much better than the first one. I think you don't realize it until you watch them side by side. Like, I think the comedy in the first one is just not there. Like, not at the level that this one is. And some of the comedy in the first one, especially upon hearing it 7 times, however many times I've watched it, it just gets old. Where this one doesn't get old to me. I rated it a 5 out of 5.
I gave it a 4.5. I thought it was good.
Okay, so for the game, we're going to do this or that. I'm going to give you 2 superpowers, and you're going to choose which one you want and tell me why. Okay, so regenerative healing factor, like Deadpool, or subconscious telekinetic probability manipulation, which is technically what Domino's power is. It's not really luck. It's that she has an aura around her that alters the probability of things reacting in her favor.
Would I have to look like Deadpool?
No.
Can I give the power to anybody else? Like, could 2 people have the power?
No.
Luck. Subconscious telekinetic probability manipulation.
So why?
Well, I just feel like with a regenerative healing factor, like, I think about it from a real world standpoint. Like, why would I want to continue healing and then, like, you get old? If you got hurt or something, I can't give you that. If you got shot, you can't do that. Like, that's what happened to Vanessa. And I feel like altering things, having the ability to alter things to go in my way would prevent me from needing to be healed, and possibly others.
Yeah, I think I think without a doubt, luck is the better one, because I mean, Deadpool feels all that. Who cares if you're gonna heal?
Like, he's died. Like, you know what I mean? That's such a painful way to live.
Yeah.
which I wouldn't be a mercenary, but I'm just saying, subconscious telekinetic probability manipulation for 500.
Okay. Cybernetic enhancements like Cable or unstoppable momentum like Juggernaut.
Cyberkinetic enhancements.
Why?
Because you could have controllable momentum that could still be unstoppable. Like, Cable can hold his own against a lot of people with the type of enhancements. And if you ever, like, lost a fight or couldn't do this, you could just go and change the enhancement that you already have. As where Juggernaut, it's it's unstoppable momentum, but it's kind of like a bull. Like, if you pass through the Matador's thingy, like, there's no stopping it. Like, you wasted the momentum.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I agree. All right. Pyrokinesis like Fire Fist or metal mimicry like
mimicry.
Colossus.
Oh, no.
Well, you don't always have to be metal. He can look human.
Pyrokinesis.
Okay. Why?
Do you disagree?
I just told you have to answer why.
Oh, I feel like fire burns metal.
Well, I'm not saying you have to fight anybody. I'm saying, just in your life.
I could bake something really fast. Heat up my dinner really fast, not need radiation from a microwave, you know? I don't know.
I think I'd go with metal mimicry. It seems like portable armor. You just turn it on.
Yeah, I'm going pyrokinesis.
You're wrong. Energy manipulation, like Negasonic Teenage Warhead, or Death Sense, like Yukio. And so Death Sense is you can see when other people are going to die and how.
If she tries to change what happens to them, is it successful or do they just die in a different way?
I don't think she is able to change it, no.
Energy manipulation.
I think so.
I just feel like that'd be a really painful power to have if you had death sense. Because every single person you're going to be like, oh brain tumor, or oh, murdered.
Yeah, it'd be miserable to meet people. I just would be alone. I would just be like, I can't ever see a person.
Exactly. So, energy manipulation.
Okay. Acid spew, like Zeitgeist, or electrical field distortion, like, what was his name?
Jamie Foxx.
No, not Jamie Foxx.
Electro.
He was in this movie, fool. Bedlam.
What can he
Terry
do?
Crews.
What can he do? Like,
so
we didn't really
he said
see his
he
power.
can distort the electrical fields in equipment. So one, you have like portable EMP. You can just turn people's shit off, but also in people's minds, causing like confusion and...
That one.
That one?
I don't want acid spew. Because what if you, like, accidentally sneeze? You can murder somebody. And I feel with electrical field, I could be like, you're driving recklessly.
Turn off their car in the middle of driving.
Yeah.
That's gonna hurt them. But yes, I agree. Acid spew, horrible. I would never deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, Deadpool and Wolverine is coming out on the 26th. That's this week. And I'm super excited about that. The trailers, you believe they pretty much tell you kind of what's happening. I didn't write a sequel based on that information.
I did not either.
All right, well, after you.
I changed. I was like, I feel like Deadpool and Wolverine has to be its own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's, yeah.
I mean, they've even said it's not Deadpool 3.
Right. And we have our own theories about the movie. Like, I guess it's really you, but you kind of think they're using this to maybe clean up some of the timeline in the actual MCU.
Yeah. Anything that they don't want anymore or that has been a problem, they'll probably just deal with it this way.
I called mine Deadpool 3. I'm still thinking if it needs a subtitle or not. But anyways, it's a direct sequel to Deadpool 2. Since Deadpool went back and saved Vanessa, that was like, you know, in the after credit scene, like he was going to use it to time travel. I don't want to say he saved Vanessa. He ended up in a different universe, is what I'm going to say. He ended up in a different universe with a new Vanessa. They met. They've been living happy. He hasn't really been Deadpool, but somebody attacks and kills his family again.
My God.
Like, it just happens. Yeah.
Jesus.
This sends Deadpool into a spiral. He starts hunting down bad guys, trying to figure out who it is that killed her again. Whilst out one night, he runs into another vigilante in a suit and realizes that vigilante is not pulling his punches. Who is it?
Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Yeah. So it turns out to be Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield one. They team up and start killing villains while Deadpool is trying to find Vanessa's killer, and Peter Parker is helping him. Throughout all this, Spider-Man starts to see Gwen speaking to him via hallucinations because she's so disappointed in what he has become. This is kind of making him question what he's doing, why he's working with Deadpool. Deadpool finds out it was none other than Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, who had Vanessa murdered in an attempt to try and make him want to go back to being a vigilante and work for him because he had previously like turned him down.
Yeah.
I kind of pulled the idea from like Spider-Verse too, that Wilson Fisk knows a multiverse exists.
Yeah.
He's like tried, he can see like other things, but he just failed and hadn't traveled. So that's a little backstory on that. So Deadpool finds this out. He vows for revenge. Spider-Man is about helping him stop Wilson Fisk, but wants them to stop killing, as his like visions and conversations with Gwen have made him realize can be a different way. Deadpool disagrees with him and they get into a fight. While they're both seriously injured, Deadpool heals faster because he has the healing factor, as where Peter is unable to heal, like he needs more time, even though I think he has like a little bit increased healing, but I don't feel like it'd be quite as much as Deadpool. Anyway, Wade tries to carry out the plan. He notices that it's much harder for him to do the job alone with all of Wilson Fisk's men to take down just to get to Fisk himself. And when he's just about to lose, Spider-Man shows up to help him. For his help, Wade has a change of heart and realizes some people can be good and agrees not to kill Fisk, but they capture him. After winning, Deadpool and Spider-Man say their goodbyes. Deadpool decides to return to his original universe. However, once he returns, he's confronted by Cable for stealing the time-traveling beacon. And then he gives it back to Cable, saying that he had Negasonic Teenage Warhead fix it, and he was just taking it for a spin. Like a comical thing.
Yeah.
So, shortly after returning, though, after Cable leaves the time travel device, he's met by the TVA, which is going to be Owen Wilson.
Hell yeah.
Asking for his help.
Okay.
After credit scene. Peter throwing down his mask and deciding to stop killing villains and be the person that Gwen wants him to be. The friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He knows he has a lot of work to do, but shortly after doing this, a portal opened as he peeks through from an alley.
Oh. I like that.
It leads into No Way Home.
Yeah.
So it takes place before that.
It's pretty good.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thanks.
Okay, well, mine is Deadpool kills the X-Men. Deadpool is now hailed as a hero all around the world, and the X-Men have begrudgingly allowed him to rejoin their ranks, but encourage him to stay away on solo missions. We see a man, David Haller, aka Legion. He is homeless, alone, and struggling with his mental health until he hears about how Deadpool travels the world, helping others, and with his manic and wild personality, Legion thinks maybe Deadpool would understand him and could help him. Legion travels to meet Deadpool and explains he is consumed by voices in his head and has nobody in his life, having never met his parents and grown up in an orphanage. Deadpool relates to him and wants to help. So Deadpool tries solutions, medicinal, spiritual, and more, but Legion seems as crazy as ever. Not to mention, Legion has mentioned one particularly evil voice in his head grows louder and louder every day. Deadpool remembers that he has access to the X-Mansion and wants to use Cerebro to enter Legion's mind. Vanessa warns Deadpool against this, but he convinces her nobody could be crazier than him. Of course, Deadpool doesn't have access to Cerebro, but is able to break in with Legion and attempts to use Cerebro. He successfully enters Legion's mind, and we are guided through an Alice in Wonderland type scenario with other manifestations of mutants inside his head that Legion has either seen or met before to help Deadpool along the way. Deadpool eventually meets the Shadow King, who has apparently been inhabiting Legion's mind and is not happy about Deadpool's presence. Suddenly, all of the mutant manifestations inside begin attacking Deadpool in an epic battle. He fights off every mutant that Disney will allow him to kill. However, because they are manifestations of Legion's mind, they just come back and Deadpool begins to lose. On the outside, Charles Xavier and Jean Grey find out what Deadpool has done and are attempting to pull them out of Cerebro, but when they are unsuccessful, Charles and Jean know that they must help and enter Legion's mind to fight. Once they are in there, Deadpool is resisting Shadow King, who is now trying to take over Deadpool's mind to force him to join Legion's mind. Charles and Jean begin to fight back, but are quickly overwhelmed. At the last minute, Deadpool thinks back to Vanessa as he believes he's about to die and remembers telling her, "Nobody is crazier than me." At that moment, he stops resisting and lets Shadow King in, seemingly turning Deadpool into his puppet. As Shadow King laughs and orders all the manifestations to kill Charles and Jean, he begins to notice every mutant manifestation now has a Deadpool mask on, and they begin making jokes at his expense and bullying him in the style of the ending of It Chapter 2.
Oh my gosh.
It is then revealed to the audience Shadow King is stuck inside Deadpool's head, and he is no puppet, as his fractured mind was too much for the Shadow King to handle. Deadpool keeps Shadow King locked away in his head, thus removing him from Legion and leaving Legion not sane, but at least stable enough to meet Charles Xavier and begin learning in the X-Mansion. Deadpool has saved another soul once again.
He didn't kill the X-Men.
He would have in Legion's mind.
Oh.
So Legion has like a million personalities in this.
That makes sense.
I made his personalities based on just people he's seen. So anyway, I I want
like
the same. I want like the same comedy from Deadpool 2, but we've talked about this every time I write a comedy. Like I can't write the jokes. Like I just have to say like it would also be funny.
Yeah, well, I feel like especially for this purpose, it would be too much to write the actual jokes because we're just supposed to come with the
I can't
idea.
sit
Like
here and read a
mine would be,
script.
I feel like mine would be kind of dark but also funny, like all of the other Deadpool movies are.
Yeah.
Because I picked Andrew Garfield. I mean, partly because in No Way Home he says he doesn't pull his punches, but I think that he was like the wittiest Spider-Man based off the movies that we watched.
Yeah.
As where I think Tom Holland was he's funny, but he's a little too young.
I could see Andrew Garfield playing off of Deadpool well, like just quipping back and forth.
And I didn't think Tobey Maguire was ready to be evil enough unless he became a superior Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that one might have been cool to do, but,
I like them both.
We're connecting it all.
Well, thank you so much for listening. We do so appreciate it. If you want to talk movies with us, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, and Twitter. We are NansPod everywhere.
NansPod?
If you'd like to vote on whose sequel idea was the best, come by our YouTube channel for the polls, or let us know your idea across our socials with a comment, tweet, or you can reach us at needlesssequel@gmail.com.
I just want to let all of you guys know, thank you for voting for my sequel being better. How many votes did I win by?
15.
15 to what?
2.
What? What movie was it? Minions? Despicable Me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you everyone. Shout out, my Despicable Me sequel was better. Be sure to keep voting.
Yeah, we do appreciate those of you that went ahead and voted. Like, I appreciate knowing that someone's there. And, feel free to leave a comment. Like I said, everything I already repeated. Links, as always, will be wherever you're listening. If you wouldn't mind, share a show with someone, leave us a review, and come back for more. We'd love to have you, and we would love to hear what we can do to improve. Next week, we're watching 2024's Hitman on Netflix. All right, take care of yourselves. We'll see you next week. And remember, it only takes 4 or 5 moments to be a hero.
Maximum effort.
Maximum effort.
Bye.